everyone. It's Naomi Wolf of Daily Clout, and I'm so excited to be here with one of my personal heroes, one of the most important public intellectuals working today, and that is the writer and commentator Joe Allen. Welcome, Mr. Allen.
Thank you very much, Naomi. Very, very good to be here.
So those of you who are not yet familiar with the incredible range of Mr. Allen's work and accomplishment, he is the tech editor and commentator for War Room, but he's also written for many other publications, including Human Events, The Federalist, and many others. And he's got an amazing, important new book out, which is unmissable. It'll make you want to kill yourself, but it'll also prepare you for the few years ahead, the years ahead, that was a slip, in a way that nothing else will. So it's something you really need to read. And after you process what he has to say, you'll be better equipped as a warrior for the present and a survivor for the future. And the book is called Dark Eon, Transhumanism and the War Against Humanity. And it just came out, I believe, this week or this past couple of weeks. So, Mr. Allen, please tell us more about it and what your basic argument is.
Well, before I get started, Naomi, I just have to reciprocate the praise. You have been an untiring warrior for human freedom, personal autonomy. I really appreciate it. Very much an honor to be here. And for the audience, Naomi has been very kind to me many times and has had no reason to do so. So I really appreciate that. But so on the book is written in a way that one could start from the beginning, go all the way to the end, as if it were a single story, or one could browse at their leisure. I know your audience is very much tuned in to the effect of the pandemic and the influence of the World Economic Forum and various other global organizations on our personal lives, things that really, up until the pandemic, these were very abstract concepts. Mm-hmm. After the pandemic, it's very obvious that these systems of control can tighten the screws anytime they choose. Right. A big part of the pandemic, of course, was the forcing of various technologies on the populace, not least of which the experimental genetic concoctions that were forcibly injected in many countries and compelled upon threat of firing or just ostracism in others. Sitting behind that, though, is a very complex, widely diffused, and incredibly dangerous ideology, transhumanism, the notion that human beings can and should be improved by way of technology, including radical interventions like genetic engineering, and of course the notion that artificial intelligence forms a sort of crystalline intelligence that is beyond anything a human being could achieve, or at least is on the cusp of being beyond anything a human being could achieve, and therefore the sort of the compulsion to merge the human mind with artificial intelligence. Right now, it's just with our eyeballs and our thumbs. But as Elon Musk has said continuously, the goal is to expand that bandwidth between the human brain and artificial intelligence. And that's really those two elements, the improvement of the body all the way down to the genetic level, including eugenic practices in order to determine the outcome of births, up to the creation of and the merging with artificial intelligence. It sounds like science fiction, and in some sense it is science fiction at present, although the ratio of science fiction to reality is closing, and science fiction is becoming much less relevant as a category in comparison to the actual developments of these technologies. That was the alarm that was raised for me, because transhumanism 20 some odd years ago, when I first started exploring it, it really seemed like a circus sideshow. It seemed like yet another crazy cult. And I've spent most of my academic career studying religious systems and, of course, studying cults. And so that was it for me. It was just a belief system. As the technologies have improved dramatically in the last 10 years, and especially as you start seeing organizations like the World Economic Forum people like Klaus Schwab promoting transhuman concepts, people like Yuval Noah Harari expounding on these concepts, and then, of course, all the other open transhumanists or implicit transhumanists who appear at the World Economic Forum. It's clear that a kind of generic corporate transhumanism has taken over. We're not talking about just randos writing from their bunkers. We're talking about an organization, an umbrella that encompasses the most powerful corporations on earth, including the tech corporations, which are arguably the most powerful corporations on earth, and government officials. So the book is a way to explain, what do these people want? And what have they accomplished? What can they accomplish in the future? And how do you face a world in which the most powerful corporations at the most powerful militaries on earth, including the US, Russia, and China, and Israel, and India, and of course, the most powerful governments on earth are being, I hate to use the word infiltrated because it sounds like it's a plot. It's worse than a plot, but are being suffused with this ideology that human beings are meant, by virtue of nature herself, are meant to merge with their machines.
Wow. Okay. I mean, as I said, you just you listen to Joe Allen and you just initially want to. You're like, okay, it's over. I'll just like give up now.
No.
No, indeed.
It's too early. Too early in the fight.
It's a lot, but let me take it. Let me kind of bring up my questions as they arise. So I'm persuaded, as you know, I think that you are the only person who has had the bandwidth and critical faculties to explain this adequately. And so I'm not kind to you when I tell people that. I'm trying to call attention to your work because I can't think of anyone else who has looked at this material and also understood the implications. The first thing I want to say is, it seems like, and I'm talking now as kind of an historian of ideas, right? It seems that there's a gigantic difference between humans using technologies to advance human goals, right? And to do things that humans want to do. And that could be one definition of transhumanism. It's a weird word, right? Does it mean transcending humanism? Does it mean across humanism? Or there's, obviously a huge difference between that and some humans, we assume they're humans, using these technologies to control and enslave and interfere with other humans against their will, subjugate them, and attain their own ends, right? These are two completely different categories. I mean, human beings since the dawn of time have used new technologies to make humans better, make humans faster, make humans more able to accomplish what they're trying to do, whether it's, the wheel to get places or the printing press to disseminate knowledge. I wouldn't have a problem with that. Most people wouldn't. The question of, do you want to use CRISPR to do gene editing to make sure your baby doesn't have Down syndrome? That's a real human question for human beings to answer. Should Neuralink be implanted against people's will in people's bodies so that they become, as Yuval Harari has said, hackable animals against their intentions? That's a completely different question. And I do believe the last couple of years have really shown us how urgent this question of free will is and the uses to which technologies are put and by whom, because a lot of people were injected with a novel technology completely against their will through mandates or coercion or fear tactics, etc. So I guess I throw that back to you. What do these people mean? Let's provide these technologies to serve individual humans using their free will and their individual choice, or do they mean let's control these hackable animals and turn them into a serf class while we lounge about in our, extensive farmlands in New Zealand or in Hawaii and so on?
It's a very complex question because it's a little bit of all of these. It would be great to point to a cabal of people who want to enslave human beings by way of technology, a singular global cabal that could be eliminated immediately. that would take care of the problem. But as I see it, you have these rapidly advancing technologies coming from different quarters of the tech sector and academia, the scientific community. And as we enter a period in which these advanced technologies exist, the question arises, how do you use them?
Right.
And upon whom do you use them? Yourself? Do you use them upon others? If you use them upon others, do you do it in order to benefit them, or do you do it in order to either influence, manipulate, or completely enslave them? And there are a lot of different answers to that. The transhumanist movement isn't really just one movement. The word comes out of a particular school, a particular group of intellectuals. It's come to be applied across the board. I use it in an admittedly sloppy fashion. Looking at, for instance, Klaus Schwab's Fourth Industrial Revolution, yes, he's hosted a lot of transhumanists, but at no point does he mention transhumanism.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, Yuval Noah Harari in his book Homo Deus never once utters the word transhumanism, and he only references two major figures at any length, and that's really quite small, but he is absolutely, without a doubt, distilling their ideas under a new kind of pop coinage.
Right.
So to the question...
Go ahead. Sorry.
To the question of the historic progression of technology, absolutely, technologies have been used from the first spears, the first fires, the first cave paintings in order to control the environment, in order to empower individuals or groups against nature or against each other, in order to heal by way of the techniques of drawing herbs, for instance, from nature. All of these things have been in play. There's a slow acceleration through the hunter-gatherer period. Enter the agricultural period. Suddenly you have a rapid advancement of many, many different technologies and techniques, completely altering the way in which human beings act, and in fact, arguably altering the genetic frequencies of populations that become agricultural. Without getting lost in that, though, as soon as you hit the industrial period, you have a very rapid transformation of what it means to be a human being in the world. What does your day consist of? What do your belief systems look like? Suddenly, the world looks much more like a machine than an organism. And more so, the human looks like a machine coming out of the Enlightenment and then the scientific revolution, coming out of people like Francis Bacon, people like Descartes, this notion that humans are, in fact, the human body is a machine and perhaps can be tinkered with like a machine. Once you hit what Klaus Schwab would call the Fourth Industrial Revolution, where we are now, the convergence of the physical, the digital, and the biological worlds, now you're talking about a radical redefinition of what it means to be human in the world.
Right.
There are two elements, though. Oh, so sorry. Go ahead.
No, I just want to we have, a brief amount of time together.
Sure.
I want to drill down specifically, like that's nothing new, respectfully. I mean, I could argue with every single thing you just said about the march of human beings with technology. For instance, women's labor was immeasurably made easier by the technologies of the late 19th and early 20th century, right? Without women wanting to turn into machines. So the uses of technology don't necessarily make humans more machine-like. They can liberate human beings to be more human. Arguably, women were chattel and treated like, the flesh version of machines before they were liberated to do other things that were more creative by technology. So I'm not persuaded that technology itself colonizes the human. What I do want to do is push you to the present moment and say, what is it these people want to do with us? What does it look like? Give me like 3 examples.
I think that the primary focus of most transhumanists is to improve themselves. In the same way that if you had a soldier or an army that suddenly was armed with weapons, such as, for instance, the musket, they are going to then empower themselves with it. It is about making yourself more able to control nature and able to influence or control others, and including yourself. That is the primary goal of transhumanists. Transhumanists do not write, including, by the way, Yuval Noah Harari, do not just sit around, and I wouldn't even consider him a transhumanist, do not sit around writing about how they're going to take over the world. These sorts of conversations are not had in public. What they do talk about is self-empowerment, self-control, and they do talk about the ability to influence others for their benefit, to control others' bodies for their benefit.
That, I mean, that is the same as taking over the world, though, I would say. Those
whoever, as Klaus Schwab and Putin both said, he who masters artificial intelligence will be the master of the world. The reason being, artificial intelligence allows a person to model reality in ways that were simply not possible before its existence, and therefore to manipulate reality in ways not possible before.
Right.
And so that idea of control, a cyborg, what is a cyborg? A cyborg is the relationship between the human being and the machine. And it's a two-way street. The human being controls the machine has input to the human being. But it's quite possible to have scenarios which we see already right now in modern society, in which that machine, that relationship, that machine has the primary control. And even the human's usage of it is an illusion of control, oftentimes to satisfy desires that were put into the human by those who are in charge of the machine. So example number one, genetic engineering, getting rid of cancer, eugenic policies or processes where you identify zygotes, you identify the genetic aberrations in the zygote before they're ever born. You produce, say, 10 to 15 zygotes. You have a kind of law or a tournament somewhere between a spelling bee and Gattaca, and you eliminate those that have any signs of Down syndrome, any signs of Tay-Sachs, any signs of horrendous cancers. These eugenic policies are sold to empower a prospective mother or father to take control over human evolution step by step. This is the core of eugenics. The new model of eugenics is one of a liberal market, right? In which one chooses one's eugenics. The second great example would be that human brain interface. The human brain interface right now, there are the company BlackRock Neurotech, funded by Peter Thiel, has about 50 people that have advanced brain-computer interfaces in their brains right now, able to control cursors and robotic arms.
Why do people do that? It's so easy to control that network.
Because they're locked in. These are, the key concept is from healing to enhancement. So these are people who have been locked in by strokes, by horrendous injuries. They're vegetables without it. And so who in their right mind would say no? But the clear goal of Elon Musk and people at another brain-computer interface company, Synchron, the clear goal is to use these patients as a kind of laboratory in order to get to enhancement. So it is a matter of, and the goal of Neuralink, the goal of Synchron is not to turn people into remote controlled zombies, although that is a clear possibility. The goal of these is to allow the human being to have agency in a world run by advanced artificial intelligence. That's the nightmare. It would be so easy if you could just say, Klaus Schwab wants to put a brain chip in your head. Klaus Schwab doesn't have data centers. Klaus Schwab doesn't have laboratories. He doesn't have gene editing facilities. He is just a mouthpiece for all of these incredibly powerful governments and corporations working on this, and they are holding out the promise of techno-utopia.
I mean, techno-utopia, it can be marketed as techno-utopia, but I can tell you, as a CEO of a tech company and as a former political consultant, that once you get a user interface that harvests that kind of data and allows that kind of intervention in the subject, no government wants free people. I mean, no government that's in power wants people to be able to have the capacity to oust them. And no corporation wants people to have the choice to not buy their products. And no tech company wants people to have the choice not to allow their data to be harvested. So I guess what worries me so much and why I think what you're doing is so important is all of these corporations can start out with the loveliest sounding goals, but the technology itself, they won't be able to resist the temptation to harvest it, monetize it, and control the subject in ways that we don't want and that we won't necessarily have a choice about. So let's go on to something kind of more immediately relatable in terms of human beings' worries. Artificial wombs, right? The hijacking of biological processes. And I'm really interested that these same tech bros created something called bio milk, which is lab grown milk. They're very interested in lab grown meat and getting us onto lab grown meat. And they're really working hard on, artificial wombs. They already, in China, they did a gene edited baby already, a set of twins, I believe. And the scientist who did that was surprised that people in the rest of the world were upset with him. And so tell us, and I want to ask about depopulation, of course. What do these people want or visualize or aim at? Because you're saying that they're not aiming, but I think inevitably, as I just said, there's an aim that arises when you've got these technologies and you're in a position of power. How do they see the near future? I mean, I think about Epstein, who actually, was trying to have a farm on his ranch where he selected like the smartest guys and, beautiful, young, healthy women, and was kind of doing, wanted to harvest and grow his own super babies. So speak to that, please. What's the family going to look like if these people have their way? Human reproduction, what's it going to look like? Population, what's it going to look like?
Well, so again, there's so many different views that compete with one another. There is no one single view, but in the book, I go into the story of hijacking, the geneticist who created first the twins, and then there was a third child that just kind of went missing. And the purpose was, of course, he was doing it in order to eliminate their ability to contract HIV because their father was HIV positive. That was the reasoning, to heal, right? But the mutation also is associated with intelligence, and it's quite possible that he was also experimenting with that. I go into that again in the book in much more detail, and then of course Epstein, I provide a very handy list. One of the primary scientists and AI programmers I look at, Bing Goertzel, was given funding by the Chinese Communist Party and Epstein, and I provide a handy list of all of the different people involved in what we would call transhuman technology, who were in some way connected to Epstein. And the list is almost, it's in kind of like the World Economic Forum. It would make more sense to talk about the people who are not connected because it's so extensive. But the artificial wombs, I think, really brings out that visceral revulsion in people, because if you've ever seen the artificial wombs that have been employed, for instance, to grow a lamb, you can see a bio bag, you see this little fetal lamb inside of it. It just looks horrendous. And so it captures the imagination. That is on down the road, but the people who are working on that sort of technology and pushing that technology are also working in all these other fields. So Sam Altman, while he's not, to my knowledge, investing in artificial wombs, he's very adjacent to many who are pushing it. And the idea behind artificial wombs, by the way, Naomi, the one of the central ideas is it liberates women from the ultimate labor, right? It liberates women from the necessity of carrying a baby themselves. It's basically going from the kind of surrogate or womb for hire model, where you hire poor women to carry your baby, and moving it into the technological where nobody has to suffer, right, is the idea as you create these people. But two of the projects that Sam Altman is working on that I think that people should be very aware of, because they actually are, one is being used right now and the other one is right around the corner. One is genomic prediction. And genomic prediction, what they do what most of these people who do the polygenic risk scores, where you take a fetus or a set of fetuses and you test each one of them for any potential genetic aberrations, right? Mm-hmm. Genomic prediction does exactly that, but they also test for IQ and they test for height. And so you can weed out your babies. They will not, they say, test for or give you the results for high IQ or height or a tall baby, but they will give you the shortest. They'll take them out, right? It's eugenics.
Oh, God. Oh.
And so, and it's at a pretty reasonable price for $9.99. But then Sam Altman, of course, a gay man, and most of the people working on this project also, they kind of make this big selling point of what they're doing. There's a company called Conception, and what they're working on, and we've seen the proof of concept in mice in Japan just this last year. What you would do is take the blood cell of a male partner, you would revert it to a stem cell, which is very doable now. you would coax it to become an ovum, and then you would inseminate it with the other male partner's sperm. In essence, creating a very new type of birth or conception model, right? Hence the name conception. And again, it's to liberate gay people, or gay men in particular, from the constraints of nature. They don't want to create horrific mutants. They want to liberate us. And you know, so on and so forth. In all of these cases, you know, that is people talk about technology is neutral, and you can either do good things with it or you can do bad things with it. And that is true within a limited range of possibilities. But just to take one technology, surveillance, there is a very limited range of uses for surveillance. So someone can watch every single thing that you do. They can monitor your communications. They can monitor your movements. They can monitor your spending, and they can use it in bless you. And they can use it in order to help you make better decisions in your life, right? In order to increase your intelligence and increase your wisdom, not only about the world, bless you again, but also about yourself. This is what Harari talks about, that there is the good side of biosensors all over the body. There's the good side of genomic sequencing. Or you can use it to control the person, to manipulate them, to completely enslave them if you want. That's also something Harari talks about in very clear terms. But this illusion of neutrality, you have still completely given up your privacy. Totally.
Yeah.
And so
what people just jumping in, what people, I will never forget, again, speaking as someone in the tech space, when I first looked at Google Analytics, and the back end of the website that was built for me. And I couldn't see names, but I could see just about everything else about the users, you know, who were using this site, how long they spent, where they were geographically, what their interests were. A whole profile could be linked to you with no problem at all. And that's why I've been so vocal, trying to warn people about, well, what you're describing, so easy to start with this health app that I've kind of got addicted to, that shows how many steps I walked every day. Is that my data? The minute it you know, is in the hands of the wrong people, and there's a social credit system issued by policy, or a vaccine passport, or any other way of creating a gateway that I don't have a choice about, it's not liberating me. It's not empowering me. It's monitoring me. You know, my steps can be followed. My route can be obstructed. I can be surveilled in other ways. It's super, super scary, and it's not in the future. It's now. I mean, most people don't even know that QR codes can geolocate them. There's so much technology that we're using right now that people aren't even informed enough about, that give away their data in a way that can be used against them, give away their privacy. So in the last, minute or two that we've got, if, people are going to be overwhelmed by this information, of course, what can we do to maintain choice in a world with runaway AI, with Neuralink on the horizon, with artificial wombs being developed? What do we do so that we get to say what we want and don't want as human beings?
Well, we're in the middle of a global civilizational transformation driven by technology. And that transformation is informed by religious ideas of what technology is. For them, technology is the highest power in the universe.
Oh, wow.
So as you're facing a world in which this idea, this notion, this technology as God concept becomes more and more prevalent, you can try to eradicate it. But I don't think we have that kind of political power or social power. You can try to block yourself off from it completely and become a total Luddite. I don't think most of us are equipped to do that for any length of time, and that makes no impact on the system. The way I look at it is that you have your personal agency if you live in a country that is, at least for now, somewhat free to say no. That was the real testing ground of the pandemic, was, do you have the guts and do you have the wherewithal to simply say, no, I don't want it, even if it's supposedly good for me?
Right.
The second thing, though, is to build the communities up where a certain shared norm and a certain shared suspicion of the hegemonic technological powers is informing the way in which people live their lives, and to knit those together. I go into the book at the end. I go into War Room has asked me forever, what do we do? What are the solutions? Well, I give it point by point by point by point what I think should happen. But I can't tell people what to do and how to live their lives. So my hope is that having articulated the problem, I'm opening up the doors with at least my preferences as some kind of model, but
Right.
everyone will have to choose for themselves. Everyone knows their situation better than I do. They will have to make the decisions. But without a doubt, Naomi, I have no hard prediction on what any particular technology will look like in 5 years. I can say without a doubt, this train is rolling. And it is, whether it's artificial intelligence that dominates it, or genomics, or brain computer interfaces, or God forbid, even robotic death machines. What we are facing right now is a global civilizational transformation. People need to have their heads wrapped around it.
Definitely. Well, it sounds like one thing we can do, and I can't wait to look at the end of the book and get some suggestions for my own life. But it does sound like one thing that will help us is to revalue and strengthen the idea of what is a human being. What do we care about as human beings? What do we want to preserve as human beings? And not just let that get erased in the flow of history. Where can people find the book, and where can they find your other amazing social media and commentary?
You can find the book, Dark Eon, AEON, Transhumanism and the War Against Humanity, anywhere books are sold. You can find it at Amazon. You can find it at Barnes & Nobles. You can find it at Skyhorse Publishing directly. Of course, you can find my own writings, joebot.xyz, or social media, same, at JOEBOTXYZ. Thank you very much, Naomi, and I hope that your listeners are able to really sink into and to some extent enjoy the book. I try to make it light. I try to make it funny. There's even a few crass jokes in there. So,
well, it's a must read, and everyone does have to run out and read it and grapple with what Joe Allen is saying. Again, one of my absolute favorite public intellectuals, one of the most important people writing and speaking. Everyone, run by Dark Eon, and thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us. So important. Joe,
Naomi, thank you very much. Thank you for everything you do.
Thank you. Likewise. Hey everyone, it's Naomi Wolf of Daily Clout, and I just want to give a thank you to our sponsor, The Wellness Company, whose chief medical team includes some of our most respected colleagues, including Dr. Peter McCullough and Dr. Harvey Risch. So the Wellness Company offers COVID and vaccine injury treatments, including ivermectin, as well as dietary supplements based on the guidance of these noted physicians and epidemiologists, such as Spike Support, which is designed to help combat spike protein. So click on the link below or head to dailyclouthealth.com to purchase their products. You can also gift healthcare to your loved ones, which is something I've been doing. I'm excited about the Wellness Company being able to offer medical advice without the pressure of big pharma. Please use the code DailyClout for 10% off. Thank you again to the Wellness Company, our sponsor. Bye-bye.